Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Deltarune discussion video. It's Garden of Eden, and I am relatively fresh from beating Chapter 3. So yesterday, on June the 4th, Deltarune Chapter 3 released. I was actually able to play it on June 4th and beat it on June 4th, which I never thought possible. I'm really pleased with myself for being able to beat the first game in one day. Chapter 4 is going to be a project that I'm going to start later on this evening, and I'll be continuing Chapter 4 into tomorrow. I will not have enough time to beat it today. But I did leave Chapter 3 with a number of thoughts that I wasn't really able to express very well because it would have been like 7 total hours of playing Chapter 3. And I'm finally ready to voice them. Just for context, when I played Deltarune Chapter 1, I gave it a 75 out of 100. It's not like Chapter 1 did anything inherently wrong. It was a very safe game. It didn't take a whole lot of risks, but the thing that I think really made Deltarune a solid game, because I think 75 is a solid score. I don't know how other people stigmatize 75 scores or 7 out of 10 scores, but 75 to me is a solid game. The thing that really won me over with it in terms of being like a game that's good, but not great, was the fact that it was accessible to both casual players and challenge players. It was a very good game that was bullet hell light, and for people that didn't have the best of reaction times. But if you did like bullet hell and you did have good reaction times, it had Jevil content to kind of tide you over. So I felt it was accessible to a wide audience. I think Chapter 2 continued that trend. Chapter 2 was magnificent. I think Toby's writing was the strongest it ever has been, including my experiences from yesterday. It was the strongest we've had so far. He set up so much lore. He set up so many characters. He presented characters without flanderizing them to the point of annoyance. He ended up having great tracks in Chapter 2, and it was very fun and replayable. So I felt overall my experience with Chapter 2 was very favorable. So favorable I gave it a 92 out of 100, which is levels of scoring very few games in my life have ever reached in terms of getting that high. Now, Chapter 3, I went in with somewhat modest expectations. I was thinking it was going to get a must-play 80 out of 100 or higher. I didn't think any game was going to necessarily start at 90 as a baseline, especially when the first game hit a 75 and the second game hit a 92. There's a lot of wiggle room for variance, so I had like an 8 out of 10 expectation. For the early part of the game, I was hovering around a 70 out of 100. Towards the end, the final score I gave it was 76 out of 100, which means it barely beats out Chapter 1, but it almost didn't beat it out. So what are the critical flaws with Chapter 3 that prevented it from reaching the heights of Chapter 2? The biggest issue, and I brought this up when I talked about Chapter 1, is accessibility. The beauty of Deltarune, at least as I saw it from Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, was audience accessibility. Whether you are a non-seasoned gamer with only a couple of notches under your belt for games that you've played, or whether you're a challenge person that challenges games, tries to no-hit fights, or tries to do speed runs, there was something in the games that catered to really everybody, and that's hard to do. Minus the mansion section of Chapter 2, but don't worry about that. But in any event, Chapter 3 kind of ruined that, and the way that it ruined it was by its focus on getting S ranks. So Round 1 and Round 2 for Deltarune Chapter 3 are graded. All of your actions within those rounds, secrets or things you find, all of that is assigned a grade towards the final ranking. And rankings are extremely important. Luckily, I S-ranked Round 1 and Round 2 without having to reset, and without knowing how important it was to get those ranks, but that is the only way to gain access to the Shadow Mantle. It's the only way to gain access to the weird route, I say in quotations, of Chapter 3. And that poses a problem. And the problem is, it is not good enough to just be a casual player, to just have elements of playing RPG lights with minimal reaction time. You need to be good at the game, and not just good at the game, good at a variety of different games that the game throws at you, to be able to experience lore and story, which I think is a huge misstep. I have learned since playing Chapter 3 that if you don't get S rank, you can buy it for 1500 points, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, the vending machine where you can exchange dark dollars to points, isn't it in the S rank room? Isn't that the only vending machine that you're allowed to exchange dark dollars for points is in the S rank room? Meaning if you leave round 1 without 1500 points, you're not going to be able to buy S rank, meaning you're not going to be able to get the ice key, and you're going to end up missing that particular key item when it comes time to playing it in round 2. So chances are you're going to have to either reset and go through the long segment, which is the mini RPG section plus the mini game, or you're going to have to amass quite a lot of points when playing the round 1 or round 2 to be able to buy the point requirement, which I think is again a huge barrier to being able to play as a casual player. So I feel this game has lost its casual audience, killed off its casual audience by focusing so much on its ranking system. That would be fine. It might still be able to cater effectively to the speedrunning community or the challenge running community. Well, no. As it turns out, this game is wildly unbalanced. Hitboxes are insane, especially the night fight. I have seen multiple hits that people have taken. I can't believe it. Some of them I do believe from watching my VOD of my own hits, from where I've taken hits when I did the fight. It is a wildly crazy game that I think has lost uh, its challenge running community aspect as well. I have seen people that had taken up the Shadow Mantle to go ahead and do all of these Deltarune challenges, potentially Deltarune God runs, throw in the towel about wanting to do future challenge runs for Deltarune, and I think that's a shame. I think it's strange that we have a game that, despite building an amazing audience from Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, has all but effectively alienated them for Chapter 3. I have no knowledge fully of what Chapter 4's experience is going to be like, except my understanding is it's probably going to involve a lot more talking. But that's about all I really know about what the experience is going to be. I felt Chapter 3 characters were flanderized. The characters we were fervently and furiously theory crafting about how they were going to be used in Chapter 3 were not used at all. Toriel was basically Snoriel, the Susie joke that she made in Chapter 2 about Toriel's being a Snoriel, ended up coming true. Toriel did nothing but sleep in all of Chapter 3, and Undyne just had a brief cameo at the end of Chapter 3, and that's it. All of the items that were debates we were having, is Dealmaker better, is Puppet Swarf better, turns out none of them really matter, at least for purposes of Chapter 3, which I think is kind of a shame. I really would have liked it. I was so shocked we didn't get another separate playable character. I'm not saying it would have been necessary to have gotten a higher score, but it felt like a lot of them were just kind of shelved. I felt there was so much utilization. And speaking of shelving, there was no place to put your items. In Chapter 2, you had 2 screens of storage space, and then you had your main item storage. I ended up pretty much filling both storage containers in Chapter 2 and kept a bunch of excess items in my file for Chapter 3, thinking, well, surely I'm going to get another page of inventory slot for Chapter 3. No, you don't. I ended up dropping so many items because I just couldn't carry them. Selling so many items from the gacha machine because I just couldn't carry them. So the reason it ended up going down from a 70 and then rising up is because Tenna is one of the best final boss fights we have. I consider it to be the final boss fight and not the night. While the mini games were hell, while related to S ranking and its necessity to be able to experience lore, I thought they were really well done and fun in the Tenna fight. It was a very good fight and probably a very replayable one, quite if you're a casual player. So I think it's very, very fun and a fun way to really round out the chapter. So the running sections towards the end and then the final section helped raise the game score to be, in my opinion, better than Chapter 1, but at the expense of alienating a large core audience. I don't know if Chapter 4 is going to do anything to really bring the audience back, but I recommended a month prior to this game's release that my sister play Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, and she's doing it at her own pace, and she may have stopped towards the end of Chapter 1, I don't really know. But if I had known that Chapter 3 was what it was, I would not have recommended Deltarune as a series for her. because I just don't see, she's not really hardcore gamer brain. And I don't see how, like, even if you play chapter 1 or chapter 2 casually, how a casual player is going to be able to play and enjoy chapter 3. I think you have to have more than a minimal threshold of competency to play games to be able to play chapter 3, which I think is a shame. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I hope you liked them. But in any event, Chapter 4 I'm going to be playing later this afternoon. Just wanted to get my thoughts out there. I'm sure other people have reacted to Chapter 3. I think overall, I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm not mad. I'm not thinking that I don't think this game is like a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. But I do think it is a 76 out of 10. I do think it should have been an 80 in my head, but it just didn't reach it, and its audience just got alienated. But thanks, everybody. Take care.